Welcome to Positive Fandom. I'm your host, Rrr Mmmm. Today we have the Cinemike with us, and we're going to be talking more Oscar talk about the Best Director and Best Cinematographer. How are you today, the Cinemike?
I'm doing great. I am excited to discuss more about the Oscars. It's always great to discuss, all these great films from last year. Yeah, so it's very exciting.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and just a few moments ago, you were telling me about the picks that they made for the Oscars in regards to the host. Now, last year, the host for the Oscars, it was a little different. It was almost as if they did
Yeah.
sort of like a round robin,
Yeah.
where sometimes some people would be talking and other times they wouldn't. But there wasn't an actual host, was there?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I think for the past 3 years, there was no host. There are just some presenters who will like act like as hosts for a certain segment. Then but there is no host that is like leading the entire ceremony. So yeah, and I'm glad that this year there will be someone, or in this case, three people who will be hosting and steer the ship from beginning to end.
Yes, and of course the three hosts. I know two of them. Amy Schumer is one of them. Wanda
Yeah,
Sykes is the second one, and what was the third one?
Regina Hall.
Right, right,
Yeah,
and
and
uh-huh.
yeah, and personally, they are not the type of people that I would expect that they will choose to host the Oscars. But individually, like I'm a fan of them. I love Wanda Sykes. She's one of my favorite comedians. Like every time I watch her on talk shows, she's always funny. Also a fan of Amy Schumer. Although she doesn't have a lot of credits when it comes to movies, she doesn't appear in a lot of films. Like most prominently, Trainwreck, but that was like in 2015. But she has like appeared in only like a few movie roles. But she is a recognizable name. Then of course there's Regina Hall. I'm also a fan of her. She's great in films like Girls Trip, and she was also on a TV show called Black Monday with Don Cheadle. I thought she was great there. I don't know if a lot of people have seen the show, but she was great there. So they're not like the picks that most people would expect. Even me, I was surprised that they went on them. But I think they can do great, even though a lot of people doesn't seem to be fine with that choices. And I think it all comes down to the writing of the jokes. And I also think that I think they were the picks who were chosen because they were the ones who were probably available. Because I read so many articles that they called Tom Holland, or Dwayne Johnson, and they even considered the trio in Only Murders in the Building: Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. I think John Hamm was even one of the celebrities that they asked, but scheduling conflict, they cannot fit it into the schedule because, of course, when you're hosting the Oscars, they just don't need you for that night. There's like weeks ahead of preparation that you have to be free to do it. So I guess it's understandable why those three ended up. Maybe they were the ones who were available that they like. And yeah, and fingers crossed that it will be a great ceremony.
Yeah, and of course, my first thought about all of this is whether or not they're going to have an actual show. And when I say show, I mean sort of like entertainment during the show. So,
Yeah,
last year I don't believe there was any. It was a somewhat limited show, and even my
yeah,
mother was asking. She says, "Where's the entertainment? Why aren't we seeing entertainment?"
yeah,
So, perhaps this year they may go towards. that direction again, if they can, if they even have time to do this. It's about a month away, and I'm not quite sure what their
Yeah,
intentions are. But I was a little
yeah,
surprised that they announced hosts, and I kind of wanted Ricky Gervais to come back again. He
yeah,
certainly
yeah. He would be a great choice as well.
he would. He
Yeah,
certainly raised a lot of eyebrows in the past, and I kind of feel like something fresh and something to kind of rock the boat a little bit would be very good. And you were also, the Cinemike, talking about the Twitter response to all of this as well.
yeah. It's divided. The reactions to the hosts are divided, which I guess understandable since they're really not the type of celebrities that you would expect to host the Oscars. But then I am I am a positive. I will think positive about this because I do think that they are great entertainers who have entertained me a lot for the past few years. So and they are like if they chose like an actress who were not really, let's just say, who doesn't have much experience when it comes to live hosting, it might go off the rails. But these people want the site. She's a stand-up comedian. She has, she had a talk show before. Amy Schumer, she is also stand-up comedian. Regina Hall, she's a multi-talented entertainer. So I think they can they can host since they have the experience, at least when it comes to performing in front of an audience.
I agree with that. I think that they will be able to read off the teleprompter, but to be honest with you, this is still going to be a very unusual year compared
Yeah,
to the normal Oscars we know. So
yeah,
I have to give them some credit for accepting the responsibility of
yeah.
hosting this. And you mentioned to me that on Twitter there's a way that people can vote for the best picture choices, or I guess maybe all the categories. What have you seen recently, the Cinemike?
So yeah, in case not a lot of people are familiar, the Academy announced that us fans, that's us, the public, can vote for our favorite movie of 2021. You can vote on Twitter using the hashtag Oscars fan favorite, and I think you can vote for like 20 per day. I think and the deadline is, I forgot if it's March 3 or 4, either of those date. You can just all Google it. But yeah, if you can show your support, vote for which movies from last year did you love on Twitter. And I think there's even like a prize, like they will choose 3 winners.
Oh,
Like like I think the prize is like an all expenses trip to LA next year to to be like a presenter at the ceremony next year. I think there's a prize like that. So who knows? You might win that prize.
yeah, I
You
have
might,
to enter this. That
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
fantastic.
You, so yeah, and I mean, why not? I guess it's their way to engage with the audience, with the general public, since the ratings of the ceremony have been in decline mostly in the past several years. To engage them, and I guess it could also be their way to recognize Spider-Man No Way Home, which is most likely to win this. If we're looking at all the box office and the audience scores, I think Spider-Man No Way Home is the safe bet to win this Oscar fan favorite category. And it's not really like a category where they will give a trophy. It's more just like a special award, like recognition that they will just announce sometime in the ceremony. So why not? If so, why not?
I,
Yeah, do that.
I agree with you, and it's something to think about for sure. So, guys, definitely, if you're watching this, go on. I'm not. I don't work for Twitter. I don't represent them, but go on and enter that contest. That sounds like
Yeah,
it would be a lot of fun to win something like that, and certainly would be a great trip. Nevertheless, if you could get that. So,
yeah,
um, so let's begin with our best director, best cinematographer uh, review for the Oscars of
yes,
2022. Um,
yeah,
let's start with the directors, of
yes,
which it's not a surprise the directors that were picked. Um, I'd like to start with Kenneth Branagh. And, of course, we know Kenneth Branagh. He's a very well known actor. Um, uh, you know, uh, for Shakespeare. I've watched him as Wallander for so many years, excuse me, and also for Harry Potter, which many of us know him from that, but he's done even so much more. Um, and this movie that he is the director of, Belfast, was an autobiographical movie, correct?
yeah, yeah. It's a slice of life, from his childhood.
Right. And of course, the film focuses on the start of the Troubles in Belfast, which went on for quite some time, and the dilemma of, how to handle that for his family and for him as a young child. This is the place that he knows as his home. So having to essentially make the decision as to whether or not they're going to stay in Belfast or leave. I thought in regards to the making of this film that it was not easy to organize because of all the fighting scenes and the disorder and chaos
Yeah,
that occur in the film. It seems like it's a lot to coordinate. The film was, as we'd mentioned previously, was filmed in black and white, and that black and white medium does kind of take, a special type of preparation when you're setting up scenes and trying to get certain angles. If everything looks great in it, but I think it's very important to have specific scenes in there, and I think Kenneth Branagh did a good job with the directing of this film. What are your thoughts?
yeah. First, Kenneth Branagh. So this is his second Best Director nomination in his career. He got his first one from the very first film that he directed, which is Henry V, way back in, I think, 1989. So it's been a long time since he got a director nomination at the very least, and he has been one of the most active directors in the industry for the past, I guess 3 decades now at this point. He has directed like the first Thor movie. He also directed the Cinderella live action Disney film. He also directed Murder on the Orient Express, and now the sequel, Death on the Nile, which is out now in cinemas. And of course, as you said, he's directed a lot of Shakespeare films, and also on stage. So yeah, he's been a prominent director, and Belfast is a personal film for him. So I guess it is safe to say that out of all the films that he directed, this is his film. Like this is his baby. This is his like life's work, since it's basically about his childhood in Belfast. So he knows how to steer this film. What kind of film does he want? So yeah, and I thought he did a great job on directing it. He was able to make us as the audience feel that it is a personal story, make us experience that time in Belfast, and the black and white look certainly helped it and made it look like a memory piece from his past, from his childhood. And I also love the choices of like a majority of it is black and white, but then like there's a scene when they were in cinema watching a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the movie the movie screen itself was in colored, which I thought was a great choice. Um, and as you've said at the beginning, there's this riot scene, which of course it takes a lot of choreography on how to do that and direction. So yeah, I and also of course as a director, he one of his job is to give directions to the actors and guide them, and he certainly did a great job on that, directing the actors. And two of the cast members earned Oscar nominations there in acting as a result. And of course, Jamie Dornan and Catriona Balfe and Jude Hill, who plays the young, basically the young him, was were great. So yeah, I he earned this nomination for sure.
He absolutely did. And one other thing that I think is very interesting about this movie versus the other ones that were nominated is that it's based on historical events.
Yeah.
And something that I kind of like about it is the fact that there are a lot of people who are completely unaware of what the Troubles are and that they even occurred. They don't know what had happened in Belfast and in Ireland at that time. And I think this movie is an excellent introduction to helping people understand the struggles that people were faced with suddenly, in a place that this was not the norm prior to that. So I think that by having this historical event documented and done in such a beautiful way is really such an accomplishment for Kenneth Branagh, and perhaps historically maybe one of the most culturally significant films we've seen in this category selection. So just under the fact that does have that cultural significance and is based on a true life event, I almost wanted to win for that purpose. But there are other films that are nominated. So and the one that you said is now your favorite film, Drive My Car, by
Yes.
directed by Hamaguchi.
Yes. So yeah, Drive My Car. So Drive My Car is directed by if I hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, Ryusuke Hamaguchi. He is, I believe, he is the first Japanese director to earn a directing nomination since Akira Kurosawa. I think it was in the 80s. So that was the last time that a Japanese filmmaker got a nomination for Best Director, and it was since Akira Kurosawa. So he's basically following the footsteps of one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. So yeah, so between the time when we recorded episode 1 and 2, I watched Drive My Car, which I thought is such a beautiful film. It's now my favorite film of 2021. It is 3 hours long, and some might find it slow, but for me, I thought time flew by, and I loved that the opening credits didn't roll until 40 minutes into the movie, because there was a lot of setup during the first 40 minutes about who this main character is, what his problem, his dilemma, and I thought it's a beautifully made film for sure. He used, like, there were a lot of visuals, close-up shots, like, that really conveyed what these characters are going through. Like, there was one moment when we see these two main characters smoking, and then if you all have seen the film, you know what moment I'm talking, when they were smoking in the car. Then they opened, I forgot what it's called, they opened the roof of the car, and they did that thing with a cigarette. and I and and also, yeah, it's a type of film that could have been, um like, given the pacing, given how long it is, it could have turned off, like whoever is watching the film. But for me, in my experience, and certainly a lot of critics did, and a lot of people raving it, I he did a great job on this. And he also direct, and also I thought the performances of the actors, since, as I mentioned, like in Belfast, one of the jobs of directors to guide the actors. I thought he directed the actors very well. The lead actor, his name is Hidetoshi Nishijima. who I thought gave a fantastic performance. He he did a great job directing them. And I was really very impressed of this film, which is based on a short story by Haruki Murakami, who is a very prominent author. He is based on a short story, and his stories are not really easy to adapt to the screen, but thought he did a great job on that. And so honestly, he is my personal favorite here among the five nominees. Like, I will be rooting for him to win. I'm not sure if he'll have a chance, but he certainly deserves this Best Director nomination, and I'm looking forward to see more of his films. I think he only has four films so far in his resume, and I'm looking forward to see more of his films and deep dive to Hamaguchi's filmography.
Yes, I would have to agree with you on a lot of what you have already said. And one thing that I also did want to mention is that I think that Hamaguchi kind of establishes himself as an auteur with
Yeah,
this type of film. And we
yeah,
don't see that very often sort of get into the mainstream nominations. But there certainly is something to be said for the style that this film is made. And, some of the more solitude moments of it are meant for you to reflect and try and understand, what it must feel like to deal with loss like this.
yeah.
And I think that that was very poignant and a wonderful way of doing it, because we have seen maybe two or three other films that are kind of trying to achieve that, but none of them really seem, in my opinion, to achieve it like Drive My Car does. So, I think that that's the beauty of this, is that from an altruistic view, Hamaguchi is able to pull this off and do it so well that you can't help but to take notice of this accomplishment. So I think that he is well deserved in getting this Best Director nomination. And it's so hard to pick one. Um, and for the next film, by Paul Thomas Anderson, Licorice Pizza. I'm a huge fan of Paul Thomas Anderson. For me, it's Boogie Nights was the film that he made that really opened my eyes. I really loved that film, and I thought that the manner upon which he made the film, which is kind of a difficult subject to talk about, sort of like the height of the pornography industry in the United States in the
Yeah.
1970s and 80s, was not an easy topic to conquer, and perhaps not even a desirable one for many artists. It might be a history or an area that many people would like to forget about. So, having the nerve to go ahead and saying that you're going to, have an all-star cast, ensemble cast do a film that has some very difficult and thorny issues that it has to deal with, I thought was an incredible challenge, and I think he pulled it off. But he also has directed There Will Be Blood, for which he has won an award for. I can't remember what the award was. I don't know. I don't believe it was Best Director, but that film got a lot of critical acclaim. And Licorice Pizza is no exception. It's a coming of age film where the performances are amazing. What did you think of this nomination for Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza?
So Paul Thomas Anderson. This is his third director nomination in his career, and with the three nominations that he received this year, it's his 11th nominations. He has 11 now, but still haven't won. And maybe this is his year. Let's just see in more than a month. But so this is third director nomination. He first earned his first one for There Will Be Blood, which has of course, a very critically acclaimed film, and it has the legendary performance of Daniel Day Lewis. And then he earned his second director nomination for Phantom Thread, which also starred Daniel Day Lewis, and also a great film. And then now third one for Licorice Pizza. It doesn't have Daniel Day Lewis, so I guess this is his first directing nomination that doesn't have Daniel Day Lewis. But yeah, and of course, as I said, he became more prominent in Boogie Nights. That is where he I guess made his breakthrough, like where he got more name in this industry. So yeah, Boogie Nights. He also did Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love. He also did Inherent Vice. You know, as I've said, There Will Be Blood, and also The Master, and now Licorice Pizza. And you know, I still haven't seen the film, but you know, I can mostly speak about PTA's achievement in his directorial career. And yeah, he is one of the most beloved directors, best directors working today. And Licorice Pizza is certainly a film of his, is certainly in alignment of the usual films that he does. And I guess, you know, speaking on all the responses and reactions, I think what led to his nomination is certainly, you know, he is one of those types of, he is like an actor's director type. Like he knows how to direct actors well, and I think it is evident with this past film. Like he directed Daniel Day Lewis to his like best performance of his career in There Will Be Blood, and you know, with The Master, like Joaquin Phoenix, Amy Adams, and the late Philip Seymour Hoffman got a nomination for acting. And Phantom Thread, he got Daniel Day Lewis and Leslie Manville to earn their Oscar nomination. Then, you know, going back to Boogie Nights, he directed Burt Reynolds and Julianne Moore to, to their Oscar nomination for that. And then with Magnolia, Tom Cruise earned an Oscar nomination. So he certainly, as evident by his past works, like has he has brought a lot of actors to their Oscar nomination. Unfortunately, this year is not the case. Although I think it's just because of the competition, also the fact that most of the actors, I mean, particularly the two main actors here, are not well known, which I think was one of the factors why they did end up getting nominated, I guess. But yeah, Cooper Hoffman, it stars Cooper Hoffman, the son of Philip Seymour, of the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Alana Haim, who is making her debut as an actress. And the fact that those performances receive praises for their debut film roles, I think speaks a lot to Paul Thomas Anderson's talent as a director. So yeah, he is certainly, just based hearing at the responses, he earned this nomination as well.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, I'm a huge fan of his work. So I think he certainly is someone who we should keep an eye on going forward. And of course, the next director, Jane Campion, directed The Power of the Dog, and she's I think she won as best director for the piano. I could be wrong on
Uh,
that, but
she won a screenplay for that.
yeah, and she also directed some other films, like for example, one called The Portrait of a Lady, and that film, was somewhat, I guess, caused a lot of people to either love her work or hate her work. And I think that this movie, The Power of the Dog, might be one of those films that falls into this category of you have to make a decision as to whether how you feel about it. I think that in regards to the actors, I wouldn't say this was her strongest directorial effort, in my opinion. I think that she had a stronger influence and maybe prominence in the piano and The Portrait of a Lady as two examples. For The Power of the Dog, I felt that while it is true that it is a rather unusual topic and screenplay, it was an interesting story. However, the direction, I don't know whether I was terribly fond of the direction. I think part of it became confusing to the viewer, and
Yeah.
would cause you to lose a little bit of interest in it. However, that does not mean that since it was nominated, I think, what was it, 12 awards, that it won't win. She may get it for this, but for me, I wasn't that fond of the outcome. What are your thoughts about The Power of the Dog, and Jane Campion.
Yeah, so Jane Campion, this is her second directing nomination in her career. She got her first one for The Piano back in, I think it's 1993, but she lost that award to someone who is also nominated this year, which we'll discuss after her, Steven Spielberg, who won that year for directing Schindler's List. And yeah, I guess this year is like a rematch between them. And she's also the first female ever to earn a second Best Director nomination. And and if she wins, it will be the first time in Oscar history that the two women in a row won Best Director. Since last year, Chloe Zhao won for Nomadland, and and this year, if Jane Campion's win, it will be first two female winners in a row in directing. And you're right. Jane Campion's work, it's not necessarily like the audience would just love. There's certainly some. Although she's a very well respected director, and The Power of the Dog is her comeback. Is her comeback film since I think 2009 was the last film. Was
Yeah.
the year where she had a film that she directed. I forgot what film is it, but although between that film and Power of the Dog, she directed the miniseries Top of the Lake, starring Elizabeth Moss. So she certainly is still active in directing, even though she took a long break in feature film directing. She she ventured into television for a few years for two seasons of Top of the Lake. Then now with the Power of the Dog, it's her comeback in I think 12 years, between 2009 and 2021, and she certainly and she has she and so far she has won. I believe she won the directing award at the Venice Film Festival last year. Then she won the Golden Globe as well for Best Director. So she is the front runner in this category for sure, and I think she will win. I think she is, if not lock, maybe a 95% lock to win this, since she is the front runner. She has the respect in the industry, whether people were fond of the power of the dog or not. I think a vote for Jane Campion here is not just a vote for the film. I think it could also be a vote for her career. She, because of the Piano or Portrait of a Lady, and among other films she directed, and and she certainly directed four actors in this film who earned a nomination this year. With Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, and Cody Smith McPhee. So yeah, she directed four actors to their nominations. So in terms of that, she certainly did that, and yeah, and I think watching Power of the Dog, even though I didn't love it as much as most people, most critics did, I do think that watching that film, it really felt like Jane Campion was in command of that film. That it really was her vision. That she really steered the ship based on what she wanted. That she really was given all the freedom by Netflix to do the film according to her vision. Like, it's really obvious. It really was obvious when I was watching the film that this is Jane Campion um, handling this film all all according to her vision, and I admire her for that. So yeah.
Okay. All right. That's excellent. And of course, we have our final director who's nominated, Steven Spielberg. I'm not going to go too much into Steven Spielberg because his work is so well known already.
Yeah.
And of course, he's nominated for West Side Story. I think, of course, he did a wonderful job with West Side Story. I think that it came out beautifully. It was a well-made film, definitely well directed. Certainly, no doubt about that. And if he was chosen to win as the director, I would not be surprised because he has earned it here in this film. And as I said, I'm not going to go too far mentioning much more about Spielberg, because his work is so, at least for me, his work is so well known, and we've seen so many accomplishments from him already. And it's really hard looking at this list to see who would win this particular directorial best director. But if I had to pick one, if I could pick one, I guess I would probably pick Belfast, because, as I said before, I liked it because it was an actual historical event. And, it's not easy to always tell the events or story of your life. And a lot of people don't want that to be on the big screen either. But Kenneth Branagh chose to do it. And I think it was culturally significant, since we are seeing a lot of, uh, you know, rife and, conflict in our world today. Seeing an example of it as him experiencing it as a child, I thought it was a very good example. And I am kind of torn between that film and Drive My Car. I think that Drive My Car does something, from an altruistic point of view, that deals with loss, and, in a realistic way. It's not all hearts and flowers for this person. And, sometimes the practicalities of life are things that you have to focus on in order to get through day by day. So I really like those two, to win. Those really would be the two that I'd want to win. Which one, if you could choose the Cinemike, which one or two would you say you absolutely want to win this award?
Yeah, so yeah, if I'm at the Academy, I will vote for Hamaguchi. Although, full disclosure, I still have not seen Licorice Pizza and West Side Story, so it might change, in the next following weeks once I see the film. But yeah, if I'm at the Academy, I will vote for Hamaguchi because I really think that he did a great job on directing Drive My Car, and I just love that he was able to make a 3 hour drama film. Like it's not Avengers, it's not the Batman by Matt Reeves, or it's not any of that, but he managed to just make a 3 hour film that, where time flew by and make every single minute worth it. As I've said, I think the winner here will be Jane Campion. She's the front runner, and I think she will sweep every single directing award, DGA or BAFTA Critics' Choice. But yeah, Hamaguchi is my personal favorite. Although and I think you're right that let's not count out Kenneth Branagh. I think there is a chance for him. I think Spielberg, as I've said, needs no introduction. He has two directing wins before, so I could also see him winning out of not just because of West Side Story, but respect, I guess, for him because of his great career. So yeah, I'll be rooting for Hamaguchi. He will get my vote if I'm in the Academy.
Yeah, I have to say, I personally would be happy if he won as well. I almost wish that he and Branagh could both win, but they can't. But I kind of wish that they would open up more categories, especially in a case like this, where they could have additional awards for the nominees. But
Yeah,
it
and
is what it.
yeah, and I forgot to mention, there was one director who I think got snubbed here, or at least considered by many of us as usual, which is Denis Villeneuve for Dune, who I think would
Yes.
have been a great nominee as well if he ended up on the list, because he also did a fantastic job directing Dune. So yeah, it's a tough competition here.
Well, it is surprising, and I think if it were years ago, he would have been nominated.
Yeah,
And
and
even if
yeah,
he would have at least gotten that nod towards the effort that he put in, because the effort was just unbelievable. The
yeah,
accomplishment he did, and one
yeah,
could
and
argue that that is also an
maybe in the
altruistic film.
sequel. Yeah, and maybe in the sequel, there's still chance for him to get nominated. So maybe in the sequel, that is when they'll give him that nomination or win. So yeah, maybe in
Yeah.
that has a good chance.
Oh yes, yes. I agree with you, and so this is a lot of interesting things that they have to consider. And let's take a look now at the films that were nominated for best cinematography and the cinematographers who obviously did them. Um, the first film that I want to look at is Greg Fraser, who did the cinematography for Dune. And honestly, without even saying any more, or at least I feel like I'm revealing myself. I think that this film is going to win for best cinematography. And when I first saw the film, I had and I reviewed it. I had said to, let's say, to a number of different people who asked me what I thought about the film. The first thing that I said was that this film is all about the cinematography. And, for me, it was very clear that Greg Fraser's intention on this film was to give you that immersive feel. You really felt like you were in this desert place with the sand swirling up around you. He's done Zero Dark 30, Lion, Rogue One, and The Mandalorian, and working on Batman 2022. So he, has this experience of being able to create a world where you, as the viewer, are immersed in it. And I've seen the film in IMAX. You really are part of this dusty, sand-filled place, and I love that he's done that, and I think he's done it well. And although, to be honest with you, the other nominees are quite accomplished, I think that what Greg Fraser has accomplished has made the experience and upgraded what it feels like to watch the movie Dune and understand what it's like to be on Arrakis. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, Greg Fraser's cinematographer Dune. I agree with every single thing that you said. I think he will win this. I think he is the front runner to win cinematographer Dune. So Greg Fraser, this is his second nomination. His first one was for Lion a few years ago, which is also a great film. If to those who haven't seen it, starring Dev Patel, Nicole Kidman. And as you said, he has become one of the household cinematographers now, since he also did Zero Dark 30, Rogue One, 3 episodes of The Mandalorian, and the upcoming Matt Reeves' The Batman, in which, based on the trailers, the cinematography of that also just looks beautiful. And yeah, the cinematography of Dune is just breathtaking. I don't know what else to say because it's just beautiful. Like I don't know what other descriptions I could have, and yeah, it's just, and knowing that they film a lot of it on location, like those landscapes are not 100% CGI. Like they were actual locations that they shot on camera. It's just, yeah, I was also in awe of the cinematography of the film when I watched Dune, and it will certainly deserve to win if it wins because it's just a beautifully looking film, and it really felt like it really felt like Arrakis came to life on the big screen. It really um, um, yeah, it's just I don't know what else to say anywhere because it's really just a beautiful film.
The Cinemike, when the film first came out, there was a lot of controversy about the fact that it would be streaming for home video. Let's say on-demand streaming, and not a home video, on-demand streaming. And, at first I myself was quite surprised that they did this. But then I thought to myself, it really enabled more people to see this film, considering the circumstances of how things were. I really have to say that I'm glad they had that option for people. And while it might have hurt the bank, might have hurt the overall money making potential for the film, I think that the film is going to become, if it hasn't already made its money back, it's going to become a cult classic because of the intensity and the editing and the cinematography of the film, which I think were stellar. And I think that they outshined the actual actors' performances for me. I couldn't take my eyes off of the visuals. Everything from the settings to, the landscapes, even, the orientation, of a lot of the things that we saw really gave us that sense of scale and size that you absolutely needed to have in Dune and isn't easily achievable without using sort of like, effects that may not necessarily look good, but all the effects in this film looked fantastic. And I think that that was something that, everybody has always wanted to see in this particular genre, but we haven't always gotten it because it's not easy to achieve. So, I think that Greg Fraser really deserves the award for this one. I think he's going to get it. As much as I like the other films, I just don't believe that they're going to take this Best Cinematography award away from Greg Fraser. Let's go on to the next one, Nightmare Alley. And the cinematographer is Dan Lutzen. I loved the cinematography in this film as well. The film was beautifully done. Benicio del Toro directed it, I believe, and the performances of the actors are fantastic. But that cinematography, trying to recreate a world from I guess maybe it's 1930, perhaps, in the United States, isn't always easy to achieve. And the spectacle of making the circus an amazing and sort of like a fantasy and a wonderful place to go to, mirrored by the idea that we are seeing everything behind the curtain of sort of the horrors of what's really happening, and how people are getting duped more or less, just for the thrill of having the circus come to town. Wasn't easy to capture that magic, and I think they captured it a lot in the film with a lot of the angles and points of view. I thought it was so amazing what was done in this film. I think that I know he had worked on Mimic and The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water ended up winning, I think, Academy Award for Best Picture. But I think that his ability to create these worlds, like for The Shape of Water, we're talking about a creature that's in a water tank, and it's not always an appealing idea, being sort of in a metal tank, but he made it seem magical. He made it seem, extraordinary, and this creature that was in there, he made it feel as if it was something that was so amazing. And I think he did the same thing with Nightmare Alley. What are your thoughts of Dan Lutzen for Best Cinematographer for Nightmare Alley?
Yeah, so Nightmare Alley, which is Dan Lausen, if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. This is his second nomination in his career. He got his first one for The Shape of Water, which is also a great film. Then he also did the cinematography for Crimson Peak, which is another Guillermo del Toro film, and he also did the cinematography for John Wick 2, 3, and the upcoming fourth film. And I think he revealed in the Designing Hollywood podcast, where Rob interviewed him and the production designer, the costume designer, Nightmare Alley, where he revealed that he will also be the cinematographer of the Color Purple musical, which I am excited for that. And in terms of Nightmare Alley, I'm going to quote what Rob said in that Designing Hollywood podcast, because this is the exact same thing that I would describe. Where I think with the cinematography of Nightmare Alley, like every single shot looks like a still photo. I agree when Rob said that, because it really is. It really looks like it's a beautiful looking film as well. And there is an awe and wonder when it comes to like scenes, like example in the carnival. And yeah, it makes you, because of his cinematography, it makes yeah, like you become immersive into the world of the film. and and the thing, and not just with Nightmare Alley, but even with the other Guillermo del Toro films, like even when things get dark, there's still this vibrancy on the look of the film. And certainly here in Nightmare Alley. And so yeah, I he really deserved this nomination for with Dan Lautzen nomination for Nightmare Alley. He deserved it. It's just a beautiful looking film as well. So yeah, he deserved it.
Excellent. He definitely did deserve the nomination. I agree with you 100% on that. Um, and so our next nominee for Best Cinematography is Arie Wagner, who's a woman, for The Power of the Dog, another nomination for this movie that's got 12 nominations. And supposedly she's only the second woman nominated in this category. Um, I do have to say that The Power of the Dog did have some beautiful, sweeping views of what looks like, let's say, what is supposed to be a Western. I don't know whether it's supposed to be the United States. It could be anywhere. It could be
Yeah,
Australia.
yeah, yeah.
It could be anywhere where they're showing you. But with the accents, I guess it is the United States. And it's some beautiful cinematographic scenes, especially the one with the dog in the mountains. It looks like a barking
Yeah.
dog, and also the scenes where they're at the river, and those scenes are actually really good. There is nudity. There's a lot of people who are, or let's say there's a lot of nudity in the film, but I thought that it was done with elegance to it. It certainly wasn't slapdash. Perhaps this is one of the best parts of the film for me is the cinematography of The Power of the Dog. Certainly is a triumph for Ms. Wagner, and it certainly is breathtaking. And even when you're inside of these, a number of the different houses in the story, or buildings, when you look out the window, the vistas are really, really attractive. So I think that that's what's part of the appeal of working outside and kind of enjoying the environment. So I think that it certainly did deserve the nomination, but it's not. I think it has more of a natural sense of cinematography versus Greg Fraser's cinematography that might have had a few tricks to it to provide scale differences and immersion. So, it's two very different elements to create the fantasies of each film. I did feel like in Power of the Dog, I was there. You felt like you were in the West, um, you know, early 1930s, perhaps the date. So that certainly was accomplished. And I think that Arie Wagner has a lot to be proud of in the work that she did. What are your thoughts about Arie Wagner for Power of the Dog Best Cinematographer?
So yeah, as you've said, Ari Wegner, the cinematographer of Power of the Dog, she is the second female nominee in Best Cinematography. The first one was Rachel Morrison for Mudbound, and she's the second one. And of course, it's her first nomination in her career. And if you look at her resume at all the films, she doesn't have the same resume as the other nominees. And the other like prominent film that she worked on so far is Zola, and then now Power of the Dog. And I for sure she will definitely have a thriving career in the future that will be on the same level as her fellow nominees here. And you're right, the cinematography of the Power of the Dog is certainly one of its strongest elements, especially with the landscape of, they shot this film in New Zealand in disguise for early 20th century Montana. And as I said, that particular scene with the dog, in the mountains, so that is certainly one of the standouts when it comes to the cinematography of Power of the Dog. Yeah, it's also a beautiful looking film as well, and it's a western, and there will always be beautiful cinematography when it comes to western films since they are shot outside with all the mountains and the landscapes. So yeah, it's definitely there's a western film in terms of the look and the locations, and with all these beautiful landscapes that we're seeing when they're traveling around. So yeah, Ari Wagner deserved this nomination, and I am looking forward to see more of her work because this is the beginning of her wonderful career that she will have soon. And she already earned an Oscar nomination like earlier in her career, which is also very impressive. So yeah, she also deserved this one.
Yeah, I agree totally on that, and so that's very interesting. And then the next film is The Tragedy of Macbeth, with Bruno Del Bonell nominated for Best Cinematography, and he is known for his work on Amelie. And one of my favorite, there's actually two other films that I think he did such an amazing job with cinematography. That is Big Eyes, which is about Margaret Keane
Yeah,
as an artist, and The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is a Western.
yeah.
I have to say that while it is true that perhaps sometimes the settings in a lot of these films that have Shakespeare in them are not always the types of things that you're thinking about direction, it still requires a lot of work. Excuse me, best cinematography. It still requires a lot of work in order to convey what they're trying to do. What did you think of this best cinematography nomination?
Yeah, one of the elements that certainly stood out for the tragedy of Macbeth, even if you have only seen the trailer, is the cinematography. Bruno Del Bonell, this is his sixth nomination, although he has never won, and as you said, he did Amelie, which he earned his first Oscar nomination for. That is certainly that has a beautiful cinematography. He also, as you said, Big Eyes, like he worked on the latter Tim Burton films like Big Eyes, and I think he also did Dark Shadows and the Miss Peregrine film. And then he also worked with the Coen brothers, like as I said, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs and Inside Llewyn, yeah, if Inside Llewyn Davis, and he also did the cinematography for Darkest Hour, which is the Winston Churchill biopic starring Gary Oldman. And yeah, I the cinematography of Tragedy of Macbeth, I will use the same description what I said in Dune, is breathtaking as well. It is German expressionism inspired, and the thing about the tragedy of Macbeth is they shot it on soundstage. They didn't shoot it on location. They shot the entire film in soundstage, and with this and the production design, which is also nominated for, which we will discuss in a later episode. It's like I'm lost of words on how to describe, because just the composition and how he lit, and the film is in black and white, and how he lit like some certain scenes. Yeah, it's just a beautiful work from Bruno Del Bonell. Certainly, one of the standouts in terms of his career, of his work. It certainly deserved it. If it didn't get a nomination, I think it would have been absurd, because this is one of those films from last year where you can easily point out and say this is worthy of a cinematography nomination, because it really stood out when you watch the tragedy of Macbeth, and certainly help out in terms of the story, and also make it more, and it made it a unique Shakespeare film from the other Shakespeare films that have existed before.
It certainly has made becomes more standout because of that approach. And I agree with everything you've said. It would be interesting if he did end up getting the Academy Award for this film. Um, and I guess we're on the last one. Wow, already. For West Side Story, Kaminsky is
Yeah,
nominated for Best Cinematographer. And I think that Kaminsky's worked on a lot of films that have won for cinematography, although he may not have gotten it. Might have been they've won for other reasons, but Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. But he's also worked on Jerry Maguire and The Lost World and AI. And my absolute two favorites that he's done are Catch Me If You Can and Terminal, which is Catch Me If You Can is my favorite Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio film, with the exception of maybe Titanic, has a completely different feel. But I like the playfulness in it.
Yeah.
And he's all, and also Lincoln in Ready Player One. This gentleman has accomplished so much, and a lot of his films are, pretty much films that are, if not number one, in the top 10 in the years that they were released. So it's not a surprise that he would do well in cinematography for West Side Story. What were some things that stood out to you? I know you said you had not seen West Side Story, but what are some things that stand out to you about Kaminsky as a cinematographer, and perhaps in some of his other films?
Yeah, so Janusz Kaminski, this is his seventh career, nomination in his career, and yes, as I've said, this one before for Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, and those are the films that also won Steven Spielberg his directing Oscar. And he is he has been the cinematographer of all Steven Spielberg films since Schindler's List. Like whatever Spielberg film you watch since 1993's Schindler's List, it is always photographed by Janusz Kaminski. And yeah, he had obviously an illustrious career. He's a legend in the industry, in the in the cinematography industry, and the variety and diversity of his work, like whether it's a drama or an action like Ready Player One or Lost World, or even in the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, or whether it's a drama like Schindler's List or or Lincoln. And then now he is doing a musical, and based on the trailer, he certainly found a way to make the look of West Side Story unique and different from the 1961 version, because with the 1961 version, it has a more theatrical, like it really felt like you're watching a Broadway musical adaptation when you watch the 1961. And with West Side Story, with the look, just look at the trailers or on the clips, which you can watch on YouTube. Like you can tell that they really put a lot of work in terms of the cinematography, with all the camera movements to make also to make it vibrant. Even when the film gets gritty, it's still a vibrant film. So certainly deserve it. And just based on the look, having not seen the film, like when I watched the trailer for the first time, the cinematography really stood out for me. And I guess it really is true, since it earned an Oscar nomination. And yeah, and as I've said, Janusz Kaminski is a legend in the cinematography side of the business. So I have no complaints about this nomination, and he earned it for sure.
Well, as I said already in the beginning when we started the cinematography area category, I think that it will be Fraser for Dune. Who is your pick for best cinematography?
Same with you. Like both I am predicting right now, and who I will vote if I'm at the Academy, it will be Dune, because it really stood out.
It certainly did. And so, this is our second episode of our Oscar review leading up to the award show in late March. And I did want to thank you, the Cinemike, for joining me on the second episode. We are going to have many more episodes in many categories talking about the
I'm very
Oscars.
excited for the next because I think
Yes.
we're doing Best Actor and Actress next, and there's a lot to discuss when it comes to that. So I'm very excited for that already.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in episode 3 upcoming, as the Cinemike you have stated. Absolutely. It's very exciting. There's so much to talk about, and these are so much fun to do with you. The Cinemike, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at the Cinemike, and read my articles on epicstream.com.
Excellent. And you can find me here on Positive Fandom, my YouTube channel. You can also find me on Positive Fandom on Twitch. It's one word, Positive Fandom. On YouTube, it's two words. I do reviews. I also do live streams and so much more. On Monday nights, you can always find me streaming with Lorraine Creole, Mandy Summers, and Nina Infinity on Toxic Femininity. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, on alternate times, you can usually find me on the 1/6 Scale Man Network. On Thursdays, especially on a show called Uncivilized Scoundrels. On Fridays in the afternoon at 12 p.m. Eastern, you can find me on Midnight's Edge in the morning with Tom and Andre and Cameron Pasha. And on Friday nights, you can find me streaming with Robert Meyer Burnett on the Burnett Work and the PGS group. For Midnight Meta. I also have videos on the network for PGS All Stars and PGS Reviews. And on Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, join me for my Sunday Brunch Live show, where I talk and parlay about all the good stuff that's going on in pop culture. Just want to thank you for tuning in to this episode. As I've mentioned before, the Cinemike and I will be having another episode and many more episodes leading up to the Oscars to keep you informed of everything that's going on. And I did want to thank all of you out there for tuning in. If you like tuning into this particular episode, please come back and tune into more episodes. I hope that this day finds you well for all of you out there. And just remember, to all of you who are out there, please remember to be kind.